The day was bright and promising on the 17th of June in 2011, when George Penka joined 80 enthusiasts, including 20 from his church, for an adventurous hike in Yosemite National Park. They aimed to conquer the challenging Upper Yosemite Falls Trail, a route known for its steep and rocky path leading to North America's highest waterfall. George, though not a seasoned hiker, was keen to experience the stunning view from the peak. The group divided into smaller teams. One remained at the base, while George's team ascended the switchbacks, passing through oak woodlands and open plateaus, admiring Yosemite Valley's iconic landmarks. Upon reaching the lookout point, they were greeted with a magnificent panorama of the falls and the valley. After capturing the moment in photos and videos, they began their descent at different paces. George, feeling exhausted and parched, paused to drink from Yosemite Creek at the fall's edge, assuring his friends he'd soon catch up. This was, unbeknownst to them, their final encounter with George. When the hikers regrouped at Yosemite Valley's base, George's absence became apparent. Assuming he might have taken an alternate route back, they waited until 9 p.m., but he never returned. The group reported him missing, prompting the park rangers to initiate an extensive search. George Penka, a 30-year-old from Hawthorne, California, was known for his love of music, sports, and his church. He had dark brown hair, blue eyes, and a robust build, often seen in a black t-shirt featuring a dog tag with the letters D and B, or a black tank top paired with gray sweatpants with a white stripe and gray-blue sneakers. On the day he vanished, he was dressed in these exact clothes. The search for George was immense, involving about 150 personnel, helicopters, dog teams, and numerous search teams covering roughly 180 square kilometers of rugged terrain. Despite their efforts, no clues to George's whereabouts surfaced. Yosemite National Park, while a natural wonder attracting countless visitors, poses significant risks for hikers. The Upper Yosemite Falls, standing at 739 meters, is particularly hazardous, with many losing their lives due to slippery rocks or strong currents. The trail's steepness and length, spanning 4.8 kilometers with a 914-meter climb, demand excellent physical condition and adequate supplies. Additionally, the park's wildlife, including black bears, mountain lions, and rattlesnakes, can also be very dangerous. After 3 days of intense searching, with worsening weather conditions and no leads, the search was scaled back, focusing only on specific areas. A week later, the search was further reduced, and eventually it ceased, with only a few volunteers continuing the search. The search became one of the park's largest, surpassing even the Stacey Arias case from the 1980s. The absence of any trace of George, especially under perfect weather conditions, deepened the mystery. Several theories have emerged regarding George's fate. Some speculate abduction or foul play, citing the blue cloth bag that he carried as potentially containing valuable or incriminating items. Others suggest suicide, pointing to potential personal struggles, but there is no evidence to support this. There are also theories of George starting a new life elsewhere or being involved in paranormal phenomena, yet these also lack concrete evidence. The inconsistencies in the account of George's hiking companions add to the layers of mystery. Their varying statements about his last known location, their delay in reporting him missing, their lack of cooperation with authorities all raise questions. The discovery of George's blue cloth bag near Columbia Rock, containing personal items but lacking identification or valuables, and the footprints found near Yosemite Creek, which offer no further clues, only add to this perplexing mystery. George Penka's character and background do not fit the typical profile of a missing hiker. Described as friendly, spontaneous, and happy, with a stable job and close family ties, his disappearance remains a baffling mystery. Despite extensive searches and investigations, no conclusive answers have ever been found, leaving his family and friends in a state of unresolved grief and mystery. George Penka's case stands as one of the most enigmatic and unresolved disappearances in the history of Yosemite National Park. And now we'll travel back to the summer of 1981 when 14-year-old Stacy Arias embarked on a guided excursion in Yosemite National Park. Sporting retainers on her upper and lower teeth, her shoulder-length blonde hair was fashioned in the popular Farrah Fawcett style. Shortly before this journey, she had attended prom with her boyfriend, despite her young age. Known for smoking at 14, we acknowledge that everyone makes dubious choices at that age, and most live to regret them. Stacy, her father George, and 6 others embarked on a 4-day Yosemite backcountry adventure with 2 guides. They traveled on horseback along the High Sierra Loop Trail, reaching the campsite on Friday afternoon, July 17th. This campsite, one of 5 in the High Sierra's 49-mile loop, each a day's hike apart, had 9 tent cabins for up to 32 people, but lacked running water and electricity. Planning to relax for the day, Stacy changed into a t-shirt, off-white windbreaker, maroon and white shorts and flip-flops, and set off to explore with her Olympus camera. Her father suggested hiking boots instead of flip-flops, but reports conflict on her choice of footwear. With just her camera, cigarettes, and gum, Stacy headed towards a nearby lake. Gerald, an older group member in his 70s, accompanied her for 20 to 30 minutes before resting, while she continued alone. Later, the tour guide recalled seeing her on a rock 50 yards south of the trail. If she was heading to Sunrise Lake, the closest lake at a mile away, she would have reached it in under an hour. This picturesque, accessible location is the most likely destination, though other water bodies in the area might have been dry in summer. Hours later, when another group of hikers arrived, they hadn't seen Stacy. Her father, the tour group, and the High Sierra camp staff began a search, soon involving park authorities. Despite searching into the night, they found nothing. The next morning, the National Park Service initiated an official search with about 100 people, including volunteers, search and rescue members, and park employees. Covering a 5-square-mile grid around the campsite, constrained by natural barriers in the distance a 14-year-old could travel, the searchers were paid $4 an hour, equivalent to about $13 today, and rock climbers were paid $10 an hour, or about $32.65 in today's money. Half were volunteers, and 3 helicopters assisted in the 11-day search, costing around $55,000, nearly $180,000 in today's money. For comparison, the high-profile Gabby Petito case took a year to reach a similar cost at a police payroll. Tragically, unlike Gabby Petito, Stacy Arias' remains were never found. The detailed search efforts in the Sierra Nevada's highest elevation meadow at 8,600 feet faced uncertain temperatures ranging from 90 degrees by day to 47 at night. If Stacy was lost or injured within that 5-mile radius, she should have been found, especially in her windbreaker and shorts. A volunteer brought a German Shepherd for the search, but no bloodhounds or cadaver dogs were used, a significant oversight. The family deserves answers, and cadaver dogs, effective even years later, could still have been crucial. Inconsistencies in the case reporting add to the frustrations. Some reports mention finding Stacy's lens cap near the lake, while a park superintendent and a park ranger claimed no clues were found. Gerald Stewart, the last to see Stacy and initially unnamed, raises questions about the investigation's thoroughness. His exact age and identity discrepancies are concerning, though there's no suggestion in his involvement. The investigation didn't conclusively rule out Stacy as a runaway, despite typical teenage issues and a boyfriend. The National Park Service's reluctance to share information is troubling. Documents released are minimal, and Freedom of Information Act requests have been denied, citing Exemption 7A for ongoing investigations. This secrecy over a 41-year-old case is baffling and denies the family crucial information. The federal government's lack of tracking for missing persons in national parks is alarming, with an estimated 1,600 disappearances annually. The Park Service's inefficiency and poor interdepartmental communication are evident. For instance, administrative flights for water sampling weren't coordinated with the search efforts, risking aerial search crews' lives. Theories abound, from wild animal attacks, which would likely leave evidence, to the possibility of Stacy slipping or getting hurt in the wilderness. However, the lack of evidence and the extensive search make these less likely. Supernatural theories and the absence of known serial killers in the area at the time leave room for speculation about abduction or a crime of opportunity. The National Park Service opacity might suggest internal protection of someone involved. What can be done now? An experienced cold case detective should re-examine the case, and divers should search Sunrise Lake for any remains or belongings. Forensic genealogy could be pivotal, comparing Stacy's relatives' DNA to public databases to find unknown descendants or identify her among Jane Doe cases. Public DNA kit users can contribute to these searches on platforms like GED Match. If you have any information on the Stacy Arias case, contact the National Park Service tip line or submit a tip on their website at nps.gov. Michael Feisery, a 51-year-old from Southern California, epitomized the spirit of an off-the-grid adventurer. Adopted into the Feisery family along with his sister, Michael quickly embraced a life that intertwined with the great outdoors. His family fondly recalled his exceptional memory, particularly for hiking trails and paths, a skill that makes the circumstances of his disappearance in 2005 all the more baffling and heart-wrenching. On June 15th of 2005, Michael embarked on what was supposed to be a routine solo hike in Yosemite National Park, entering through the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir. His initial plan was to hike through a series of scenic points, including Rancheria Falls, Till Mountain, Lake Vernon, and Beehive, before completing the loop back to the reservoir. However, in a last-minute decision that would later puzzle everyone, Michael chose to trek along the Pacific Crest Trail towards Till Mountain instead. Fellow hikers on the Pacific Crest Trail reported spotting Michael on his way to Till Mountain. These sightings would later be marked as the last confirmed instances of anyone seeing or hearing from him. The alarm was raised on June 19th, when Michael had still not returned from what was intended to be a short hike. His family, familiar with his tendency to overestimate his hiking distances, initially hoped that there was a simple explanation for his absence. They recalled a previous incident in Yellowstone National Park where Michael had severely injured his ankle and had to painstakingly crawl out of the trail until he was rescued. As concern mounted by June 21, 2005, Michael's family reached out to the Yosemite National Park Rangers to report him missing. This triggered a comprehensive search operation. Teams of search and rescue workers, along with volunteers, meticulously scoured the Pacific Crest Trail and the surrounding areas of the park. Near Till Mountain, a particularly rugged and remote part of the park, searchers discovered Michael's backpack. The backpack contained a topographical map, a water bottle, and a camera, but there was no sign of Michael himself. His car was later found parked in the Hetch Hetchy parking area, adding another layer of mystery to his disappearance. Despite extensive searches by land and air, including the deployment of scent dogs, no further trace of Michael was ever found. The absence of clues has led his family to fear the worst, that Michael might have encountered foul play or suffered an injury off the beaten path, leaving him unable to seek help. In the years following his disappearance, Michael's sister has become a fervent advocate for hiker safety. She dedicates her time to educating hikers about the risks of solo trekking and the critical importance of being adequately prepared for every hike. She also volunteers to assemble hiking backpacks, ensuring that they are equipped with essential supplies suitable for various terrains and weather conditions, a tribute to her brother's legacy. Michael Feisery is described as a white male with gray hair and green eyes. He stands between 5'8" and 5'10" and weighs between 150 to 165 pounds. At the time of his disappearance, he was last seen wearing a faded blue or gray t-shirt with the sleeves ripped off, olive green or khaki-colored shorts, and a torn pink or red scarf. Notably, He was not carrying adequate supplies for an extended hike, and he also had a beard and mustache. This story resonates deeply with those who share a passion for the wilderness and the mysteries that it holds. Anyone with information about Michael's disappearance is encouraged to contact Yosemite Park officials. Standing atop a hill after an arduous hike, it's easy to feel invincible, having pushed oneself to the limits and triumphed over nature's unpredictable conditions. However, even the most experienced hikers can be caught off guard and make simple, novice mistakes. Yosemite National Park, renowned for its stunning landscapes, towering waterfalls, granite rock formations, ancient sequoias, and vast alpine wilderness. Every corner of the park offers something gorgeous to behold. Yosemite is often regarded as one of the most beautiful national parks in the world, a true marvel of American wilderness. Among the iconic landmarks of Yosemite, El Capitan stands tall at 3,500 feet above the valley floor, drawing daring rock climbers from all over the world. Another widely photographed wonder is Half Dome, a breathtaking sight that inspires awe from every angle. Hardcore hikers can trek to its summit, while others admire its granite splendor from a distance. Whether seeking an adventurous vacation, a tranquil immersion in nature, or engaging in hiking, backpacking, or skiing, Yosemite offers a perfect sanctuary. However, for a group of hikers, the Half Dome lightning catastrophe excursion turned into one of the park's most devastating disasters. Half Dome, though an exciting challenge for many, became an unexpected adventure for some. Park rangers frequently assist hikers on the Half Dome Trail during the summer. Among those seeking thrill and excitement were co-workers and close friends Tom Rice and Adrian Esteban. They were part of a party attempting the challenging 16-mile round-trip hike to summit Half Dome. Esteban had convinced some of his work acquaintances to join him on a hiking trip. He managed to get his friend Bill Pippy and their work supervisor, Bob Frith, to participate. Frith, in turn, invited his best friend, Bruce Weiner, and both of them were recent East Coast transplants to California. Bill Pippy extended the invitation to 16-year-old twin brothers, Bruce and Brian Jordan. Completing the group was co-worker Carl Buckner, who brought along his best friend, Steve Elner. The adventure began as the Rice-Esteban group woke up to a beautiful summer sky, ready for a full day of hiking to conquer a renowned granite monolith. The group entered Yosemite Valley, and it was Bruce Weiner's first time experiencing the awe-inspiring surrounding. The monumental granite cliffs stood tall, like looming giants, leaving him awestruck. Yosemite Valley is truly breathtaking, especially as you gaze up at the mile-high cliffs from the valley floor. And there it was, Half Dome, with its distinct features. One side a sheer face, and the other three sides smooth and round, resembling a dome cut in half. It stood out as the star of the valley, towering nearly 5,000 feet above the valley floor. Bruce Weiner found it difficult to envision himself atop such an imposing mountain, wondering if he could truly accomplish such a feat. After a buffet breakfast at the cafeteria in Camp Curry, they loaded their backpacks with gear, clothing, and food, ready for the 2-mile march to the trailhead at the Happy Isles. The sky was clear blue as the group set out, except for a single cumulus cloud floating above. However, as they continued the hike, a few more cumulus clouds formed in the eastern sky. As the hike progressed, Buckner and Elner fell behind, trailing the group by about 30 minutes, while Rice, Esteban, Pippy, and the Jordan twins were ahead. Frith and Weiner arrived shortly after, around 12:30 p.m., and decided to cool off by diving into the chilly water upriver from the Nevada Fall, engaging in playful antics like schoolboys. Meanwhile, several cumulus clouds in the eastern sky combined and started amassing, with distant rumblings heard around the clouds' rest. Concerned about the threatening weather, Tom Rice and his party packed up, assuring the others that they would be safe and dry in the cave on the summit if a thunderstorm were to hit. Pippy and Bruce Jordan were setting a rapid pace, hoping to outpace the approaching storm. Close behind, Tom Rice and Adrian Esteban made a quick stop at their secret spring, with Brian Jordan soon catching up to them. Back at Nevada Falls, Weiner and Frith were falling behind, burdened by their 45-pound backpacks. Despite their exhaustion, they pressed on, Weiner's muscles beginning to cramp. They finished their water supply. And though Weiner wanted a longer rest, Frith encouraged him to push on and catch up with the others. Bill Pippy and Bruce Jordan were in a race to reach the top first, both being competitive and in good shape. However, Pippy had an urgent need to relieve himself, leading them to head back briefly. Esteban, Rice, and Brian Jordan were not far behind. As they ascended, they received a warning from two hikers coming down about the approaching storm, but instead of deterring them, it motivated them to pick up the pace and reach the summit. Buckner and Elner were still far behind, but continued their slow progress despite the threat of the lightning storm. Esteban and Rice, well ahead of the others, reached the bottom of the cables at 5:40 p.m. The dark clouds covered the sky, and lightning played over the ridges and spires, accompanied by rumbling thunder nearby. At the base of the cables, there was a warning sign cautioning hikers against ascending the mountain during a lightning storm. Half Dome is notorious for lightning strikes due to its smooth granite surface that efficiently conducts electricity. Now, they had to carefully consider their next move. While they could seek shelter in the cave at the top, they would still be exposed to the risks of lightning striking the wet surface of Half Dome, not just limited to the cables they'd be clinging to. A strike higher up on the mountain was even more likely, and the danger extended to any wet areas. As Esteban gazed up and assessed the sky, he felt a light drizzle on his face, hinting at the impending torrential rain. However, this storm seemed no different from the hazards that they encountered in the past, and they were no strangers to such challenges over the years. With a knowing glance exchanged between them, the decision was clear. Rice exclaimed, "Screw it, this is our mountain. Let's just do it." Esteban agreed, and despite the looming storm and the warning signs, they pressed on, ascending the cables towards the summit, which was still about 600 feet away. The sky responded with a mosaic of jagged lightning streaks and rolling claps of thunder, adding to the sense of foreboding. In that moment, Esteban felt the need to express his feelings to Rice, saying, "Whatever happens, happens. I want you to know I love you." Meanwhile, Jordan had decided to hike at his own pace, eager to impress the older men, and he followed in Rice and Esteban's footsteps without hesitation. Further back, Frith and Weiner approached the cables, and the warning sign at the base of the subdome cautioning them. Weiner voiced his concern about waiting out the storm, but Frith reassured him that a cave at the summit would provide refuge. Not wanting to hold anyone back as a newcomer, Weiner decided to push on. As Rice and Esteban reached the summit around 6 p.m., they were aware of their vulnerability to lightning strikes on the dome. They hurriedly made their way into the cave, celebrating their success and high-fiving each other. A few minutes later, Brian Jordan joined them, urgently guided by Esteban. Frith and Weiner also appeared at the summit and were welcomed into the cave. Inside the cave, they embraced the moment, proud of their achievement and beaming with joy. However, the rain turned colder, and hailstones started clattering on the rocks. The five huddled together, seeking warmth and camaraderie as they prepared for the lightning show outside. Meanwhile, Bill Pippy and Bruce Jordan made a wise decision to stay below Subdome, given Bruce's fear of lightning. Pippy was now severely weakened and dehydrated due to diarrhea. They decided to head back to base camp, where they pitched their tent and sought shelter at approximately 6:15 p.m. Back at the cave, eerie lightning glowed inside, casting ghostly hues. In an instant, the cave erupted with a cataclysmic roar as lightning tore across its surface. Esteban was thrown against the wall, screaming without hearing his voice. Darkness engulfed him, leaving him numb and unable to move. He had limited contact with the granite, which confined the electrical charge to the left side of his body, luckily avoiding the full impact of the strike. Weiner was also fortunate, as he was touching the wall with only his rear and thighs. He felt no sensation from the waist down, moaning in pain, but remaining the most coherent among the group. Weiner looked at Brian Jordan, who appeared shockingly vacant and dazed. Realizing the danger, Weiner urged them to leave the cave. Surveying the scene, he saw Rice slouched against the granite wall in a fetal position, his body jerking and twitching. His legs were badly charred, and his once blonde hair was blackened by the lightning strike. As Esteban regained consciousness, he noticed Brian Jordan slump forward, the smell of burning flesh hanging in the air. Brian appeared lifeless, leaving Esteban horrified by the grave consequences of his and Rice's actions. Struggling with his paralyzed leg, he looked around and witnessed Firth vomiting, with his eyes rolled back, revealing their whites. Firth's forehead bore a gash as if a white-hot dagger had been plunged into his skull. His body thrashed, teetering on the edge of the ledge, dangerously close to falling off. Esteban acted swiftly, reaching out to snag Firth's waistband and pulling him back from the precipice. However, Firth's body continued to convulse toward the edge, as if seeking something beyond. Esteban strained to hold on and called for help. Weiner, seeing his friend in peril, grasped Firth's sweater, attempting to aid Esteban. Together, they struggled to keep Firth from falling, but with both of them paralyzed from the waist down, they lacked the necessary leverage to control his violent convulsions. Amid the chaos, Weiner desperately held on, while Esteban, facing the reality of their situation, made the difficult decision to let go. Firth convulsed, sliding closer to the edge, dragging Weiner along with him. In horror, Weiner had no choice but to let go. He and Esteban helplessly watched as Firth disappeared over the precipice, falling to the rocks 2,220 feet below. Weiner screamed and began to sob, devastated by this tragedy. Turning his attention to Rice, Esteban saw his left leg twisted beneath a dislodged rock. Rice was making unintelligible noises, gagging on regurgitated broccoli. Esteban attempted to restore consciousness, but Rice's severe burns were still smoking. Outside, atmospheric crackling filled the air, adding to Esteban's fear and desperation to escape. Summoning all his upper body strength, Esteban crawled to the tunnel entrance and out onto the summit. He focused on reaching a nearby crevasse called the outhouse, about 150 feet away. Crawling frantically, he finally reached the depression, overwhelmed with relief at being alive. Meanwhile, back at the cave, Weiner was deeply shaken by the disaster that had befallen them. His injured leg made it unthinkable to climb down the cables, so he decided to stay put, hoping to avoid being a human lightning rod. He prayed that another strike wouldn't occur and remained immobile. Suddenly, buzzing and crackling filled the air again. There was no time for Weiner to react before another blinding explosion blasted the granite, tearing through the cave. Weiner experienced an out-of-body sensation, watching his own convulsing body before gradually feeling a sharp pain in his chest. He lay motionless, his shirt stuck to his exposed skin due to the burns. Rice regained consciousness, screaming in agony as Weiner's body lay on his leg. Rice's other leg was grotesquely bent under a rock. Nearby, Brian Jordan appeared lifeless, his face bluish and his body slumped over. Weiner yelled for help as the storm finally passed, leaving only a faint rumbling of thunder in the distance. Esteban, thinking the danger had subsided, left the crevasse and crawled back towards the cave. He spotted someone coming over the ridge at the top of the cables and waved his arms to get their attention. The approaching hiker was Mike Hook, a trained EMT. As Hook entered the cave, he was met with the devastating scene that had befallen the hiking party. The smell of burnt hair and flesh lingered in the air. Rushing to assist, he first attended to Brian Jordan, who showed no pulse and had sadly passed away. Hook then returned his attention to Rice and Weiner. Esteban, who had regained full use of his legs, approached the cave to help. Rice pleaded with him not to leave him behind, referencing a previous incident with Hogan. Esteban carried the two injured hikers out of the cave and placed them on the open granite, where Linda Cozier, an EMT trainer from another hiking group, and others provided assistance. Meanwhile, Pippi and Bruce Jordan were ready to begin their ascent and had returned to the cables. Buckner and Elner also arrived at the cables, and together they decided to regroup and repack their backpacks. Just as they were about to start their ascent, they encountered a frantic hiker rushing down with news of a lightning strike that had hit hikers at the top. Elner decided not to continue and headed back down. Pippi initially refused to believe the strike involved anyone from their group, blocking that notion from his mind. On the cables, they met another hiker hurrying down, who informed them that 2 people were killed, one of them a young kid. These words stunned Buckner, Pippi, and Bruce Jordan, the latter worried that it could be his twin brother who was killed. They continued their climb, the tragedy hanging heavily over them. Upon reaching the summit, they saw Rice, who informed them that Brian had fallen over the edge and Frith was killed. Buckner couldn't handle the news and descended the cables to meet up with Elner at the base camp. The news of the unfolding tragedy left them unable to sleep, each grappling with the horrifying reality of their comrade's death. As Pippi and Bruce Jordan arrived with the others, Pippi was inconsolable, feeling guilt over Brian's death while he was in his care. Around 9:30 p.m., Hook reached a ranger station and informed them about the situation on top of Half Dome. The Rangers promptly prepared supplies and set out on foot to reach the summit. A helicopter was considered, but due to the darkness and danger of low-altitude flying without sufficient moonlight, it was deemed too risky. However, around 11 p.m., the moonlight broke through, prompting the Rangers to dispatch a helicopter from Modesto. As the Rangers on foot reached the summit, Linda briefed them about the situation, and they prepared for the helicopter's arrival. Just around midnight, the unmistakable sound of helicopter rotor blades grew louder. The Rangers gathered flashlights to create a landing zone on the summit. Time was crucial, as the helicopter had to act quickly before the moonlight vanished, potentially leaving them stranded overnight. Finally, the helicopter reached the summit. The helicopter could only accommodate 1 patient at a time, and it was decided that Weiner needed immediate attention as he was in the worst condition. As he was the first to be evacuated down to the valley around 1:15 a.m., the helicopter returned for Rice, who was also flown down. Lastly, Esteban, who didn't need a stretcher, was evacuated from the summit. After the incident, Rice and Weiner's injuries were determined to require specialized care at UC Davis Medical Center. Meanwhile, on the summit of Half Dome, the remaining hikers, including Bill Pippi and Bruce Jordan, were emotionally and physically drained. The group showed strong cohesion and mutual affection, along with the other hikers who stepped in to assist. Around 6:30 a.m., a Yosemite National Park helicopter lifted off to retrieve the bodies of Bob Frith and Brian Jordan. They located Frith among the rocks at the base of Half Dome before flying to the summit to retrieve Brian Jordan's body. Bruce, Brian's brother, accompanied the helicopter with his brother's body. Shortly after, Pippi hiked down to meet Carl Buckner and Steve Elner, and they all made their way back down to the valley. When Pippi arrived at the ranger station, Brian and Bruce's parents were there, which caused him to break down in tears. Mr. Jordan's attempt to comfort Pippi offered a little solace. Unaware of the specific events leading to the tragedy, the Jordans held Yosemite officials responsible for the disaster and questioned why hikers were allowed to climb Half Dome during the hazardous weather. Linda Crozier and another member of her party, Brian Gage, gave their statements to the Rangers about what had occurred. Gage reflected on the accident, acknowledging it was a combination of Mother Nature and poor human judgment. Nevertheless, a potential wrongful death lawsuit against Yosemite loomed, with the ranger expressing concern that it could significantly impact the budget allocated for accessibility to Half Dome and other backcountry destinations. Gage was prepared to testify that the accident happened due to recklessness on the part of the 5 men in the cave. Esteban himself admitted that the Jordans' pursuit of a lawsuit would likely be dismissed, leading them to reconsider. He grappled with the guilt of causing the deaths of 2 people and injuring others, as well as the accusation from Rice that he had abandoned him. Esteban faced a difficult choice during the catastrophe, contemplating whether to risk his life to save someone else or to save himself and potentially let someone else perish. After fleeing the cave and surviving the incident with no major injuries, Esteban sank into a deep depression and was haunted by nightmares of Frith falling off the edge. Meanwhile, Tom Rice and Bruce Weiner were hospitalized at UC Davis Medical Center, both in critical condition. Weiner endured a challenging recovery with significant weight loss, muscle loss, and lingering nerve and kidney problems. More than 30 years later, Weiner remains deeply grateful to those who rescued them and cared for them during the hours until the helicopter arrived. He also acknowledged the reckless decision to seek refuge on the summit during a lightning storm, despite being inexperienced hikers. Rice, who spent weeks in the intensive care unit with severe leg burns, was resentful of Esteban's lack of injuries and criticized him for leaving. Nevertheless, he made a full recovery, and both Esteban and Rice returned to Half Dome the following summer to prove themselves. In conclusion, lightning is a significant danger during outdoor activities. Seek enclosed shelters and avoid contact with conducting objects during a storm. Large structures or cars can offer better protection than cliffs, caves, or trees. If caught in an open area, find the lowest point, crouch, and make yourself the smallest target possible. Descend quickly from high and exposed areas during a storm. Overall, understanding safety precautions and respecting the dangers of outdoor conditions can help prevent outdoor disasters, such as this one on Half Dome in Yosemite National Park. If you've enjoyed this content from a universe of mystery, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new and upcoming content.